One of the best things about this hobby of growing plants is that it never gets boring. There's always a new plant to discover or a new method to discover. You're always facing challenges like pests and seasonal fluctuation in conditions. So there's always something new to explore, always a new challenge to overcome, and so on. And one thing I think every plant parent should experience at least once is pollinating a plant. And it seems to be that anthuriums are the easiest one to go through this pollination journey with. And that's exactly what I would like to do in today's video. Now, the pollination journey of this puppy hybrid over here started about 11 months ago. And in today's video, I would like to explain to you the whole journey from pollinating to germinating, all the way to having a nice, lush box full of little seedlings. Hey everybody, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Not our first pollination journey of an anthurium, but I haven't done that in a long time. The first time I started pollinating an anthurium was about 4 years ago, I believe, and to be honest, I find the process very, very simple, and I had a very, very high success rate so far. So I thought, why not try this again, but try it with an anthurium that has really, really nice features that I would like to multiply. This is a puppy hybrid. It's a papillomelum crossed with a dresslery anthurium, and what I really like about this plant is just how incredibly dark and velvety these leaves are. I think dark foliage is something really special, and I know a lot of you guys are really into that as well. So I thought this would be a cool plant to propagate so that I can have multiples of it. Now with anthuriums, they climb, but they climb quite slowly. So I very, very rarely propagate anthuriums via traditional asexual propagation techniques like taking a cutting. However, anthuriums throw out lots and lots of inflows like this one over here, inflorescences. And once you have inflorescences, you can go through the sexual propagation journey by basically pollinating the inflorescence, germinating the seeds, and then growing them into seedlings. It's not a quick process. I mean, it's taken 11 months for me, but it yields a large volume of plants. But now there's probably about 100 plants or so in this box over here. So it's a really cost-effective way of producing lots and lots and lots of one plant. Plus, the other benefit of sexual propagation is that you might be able to create something somewhat unique. You don't need to cross the plant with itself. You can cross it with another anthurium and create hybrids. And then within the seeds, you will also see variety. So you can also then select for some interesting mutations, for example. Now, by no means am I saying I'm creating extremely unique, special, majorly rare and super expensive hybrids over here. Not at all. I'm not even creating them to sell them or to pass them on or to give them a fancy name or anything like that. We can talk about that in a hot minute. I'm really doing it because I would like to create a lush display full of lots and lots of little anthuriums. And the fastest and most cost-effective way to get there is actually to produce your own seeds. And on top of that, it's a really enjoyable process to go through. It is something new. It is very fascinating to see nature, working in the way that it's intended to work. So I think it's just like, it takes like plant parenthood to the next level. I'm no longer just a plant parent. I'm actually a plant grandparent. Anyway, quickly want to show you this new leaf over here as well, because it again shows a nice feature of this puppy hybrid. It's so nice in red when it first comes out, very, very dark, and then it will inflate. It will become bigger than this leaf for sure, and that is something I really, really love about anthuriums. But before we give it back to Jan from the past, these videos take quite a long time to produce. I'm happy to stay patient for your ultimate viewer satisfaction, so you get to see the whole journey in one video. And all I would like to ask in return is that you give this video a thumbs up, leave a nice comment, and make sure you subscribe to my channel. Engaging with my content is free for you guys, but honestly means the world to me and the future of this channel. So thank you so much in advance. I really appreciate it. But let's get going. Let's go. Faster, less talking, more doing, huh? Hello! Welcome back to another pollination journey. Most of my anthuriums have grown some nice inflows. Now, some of these, for example the Dresslery hybrid, and I'll bring you a bit closer in a sec, has already gone through the female phase. This one is currently in the female phase, this one is in the male phase, and this one I think is still slightly in the female phase. Now just a quick recap, and I've done a full video on anthurium pollination, but you basically need two inflows, one in the male phase and one in the female phase. The female phase is kind of like there's a sap on the outside of the inflow, and the male phase is the pollen. So, couple of things, given that I have one in each phase over here, I can pollinate these two with each other, or I could take the pollen, collect it in a bit of aluminium foil, and then pollinate another inflow later once they're in the female stage. I don't think I want to do anything with my crazy rubbish because I have so many crazy rubbish already. Maybe you've seen it. I've done a full anthurium pollination journey, and it's been 3 years, and these were all grown from seed that I hand pollinated and germinated and everything. So I already have heaps of those, and just crossing two of the offspring with each other, like yes, there can still be a little bit of, you know, variety in the DNA, but there's not going to be anything like significantly different coming out of it. So to me that's just a waste of energy. I rather have this plant focus on leaf growth. So I'm not going to do anything with that inflow. I'll actually get some scissors later and cut it off. But let's look at these other inflows in a little bit more detail. There you go. Alright, so over here you can see the pollen, right? I hope. So with this one I want to collect the pollen, and it is quite hard to do that while also focusing on the focus. So I hope it's going to stay in focus, but I'm basically just brushing the pollen off and collecting it in this piece of aluminium foil. Now I think that's the first pollen I've seen on this, and over the next couple of days there will be more and more pollen, so I'll just repeat this process again and again until I have collected enough pollen. The more the merrier. This is definitely one of the only anthuriums. Hang on, can you see this? I don't know if this is visible on camera, but there's a little bit of pollen down here. Just need to write on there what it was. Yeah, this is one of the plants that has some interesting features that not many of my other anthuriums have. Specifically, it's by far the darkest one. So I think this one makes sense to use for some pollination. Righty, now let's have a look at these two inflows. I think this one, again, I hope it's going to focus. I think it's pretty clear. You can see the pollen on here, right? You can also see it just on my thumb over here where I rubbed on it. The female phase is a little harder to identify, and this one is not, it's like it was in its prime like maybe 2 days ago, but maybe you can see it being a little bit shiny. What I want to do here now is I just want to rub these on each other. So I don't need to freeze the pollen. I can also just use my hand with this and then on here. Ideally, if we can avoid the freezing process, I think the fresher the pollen, the more likely it's going to be successful, but I'm not too sure if I may be a bit too late for the female phase. Anyway, worth a shot. And I think this is all a little bit out of focus for you guys, but that's the best I can do, sorry. Alrighty, I'll just keep monitoring that. If this one is producing more pollen, I will also just collect it to have it for potential future use. And this one, past the female stage, might still also go through the male stage, and then I will also collect pollen on this one. Alrighty, so I guess I'll see you once there's some updates to share. I think I might have been a little too rough. My pollinating technique obviously was slightly rough. I think I have killed these two inflows. They're so limp. First time I've been stroking something so hard and it ended up limp. No, I cannot say that actually. Oh well. We learned a lesson, didn't we? Let's cut these off then, because I don't think they're gonna really recover. But while I have you, this one, the The actual one I wanted to use for hybrids anyway. Actually, let's cut off this one down here as well that I already dismissed. There you go. Yeah, this one that I actually wanted to use to make hybrids with has more pollen, so let's collect that yet again. And this time I'm going to be a little softer with it, not quite as rough. It's actually not as much pollen as I was hoping there to be. Oh, a teeny tiny bit. I don't know if you guys can see this, little bit on there. That is also it for this one, because I can already see the next one coming. I think I've got enough pollen, just a little bit goes a long way, so that's it. Hello! We're here to pollinate this inflow over here. You can probably not see this. Let me take you a bit closer with my phone. You can probably see that this inflow is quite nice and moist, which means that's the female phase ready to receive pollen. Now, it already started showing little bits of moisture yesterday, so I already pollinated it yesterday with the second batch of pollen that I harvested last month or so. So you can probably see this pollen over here. It might be way too bright, but I'm just going to take this, and sorry, this light is very bright, I understand, and I'm just going to do this with my finger because I find that easier. Let's collect all of the pollen, and then I kind of rub this gently. Last time I was a bit too overexcited. Just very gently rub this on here, and that's it. Now, this was the puppy pollen, so this is its own pollen. So at this stage, I'm really just pollinating it with itself, because that's the only pollen I had. But I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing because it's a puppy dressery hybrid. Is it? Is it puppy Hofmanni? One of them. So in itself, it's already a hybrid, which also means that if I now make offspring with this plant, there should be a bit of variety within the plant, even if I cross it with itself, because itself is already a hybrid and not a species, right? So, plus I think it's really nice. It's one of my favorite ones. It's actually also growing a new leaf at the moment. Also has a bit of fungus net issues, but that's okay. We'll deal with that. And yeah, I think it's a really beautiful one. I would actually love to have a really lush pot of these as well, because they're so nice and dark, beautiful sheen. So, but also my only option at this stage. I think the Clarinervium was producing a tiny bit of pollen, but it's still such a small plant. Like that little bit of pollen is not going to go far with a big inflow like that. So I figured let's just use the pollen that I have most of, and I had 2 batches of that. So I used one yesterday and I used one today, and potentially the female phase is still gonna go on tomorrow, but now it's like a waiting game. Let's see what happens, and I'll take you along. Hello my friends, I have harvested berries. It's been 3 months since we've last spoken, or 3 months since I pollinated that inflow. And look, I'll just pop in some videos on the side of the slow development of these berries. You know, if the inflow stays kind of greenish or brownish and doesn't go yellow or red, then you usually know that it was successful, and then you start seeing these little bumps, and then eventually you really start seeing these little berries, and then you know at least you were successful in growing berries, and then eventually these berries start kind of popping out of the inflow by itself. And that's when I put this little filter bag. Hello Bradley. Yes, I put this little filter bag. I actually bought it for when I had the fungus net infestation, and I soaked the mosquito bits in here. So I was like, actually this is a great idea. I can put this over the inflow with a zipper. Yeah, and then eventually they start popping out of the inflow, or at this stage it's actually called an infructescence because it is the fruit. And then they just land in here, but because it is a mesh, they can still breathe, so they're not as likely to go moldy. However, obviously, as the berries started popping out over the last like 3 or 4 days. So the berries that are a little bit older, you can see, I don't know if you can see them, they're so small. They are a little bit browner. They're definitely going a bit moldy compared to berries that just popped out today, right? So I don't want to leave them in there for too long, because ultimately growing berries is good, but what I really need is seeds inside the berries, and I don't want those seeds to be moldy. So this is kind of the first batch, but the inflow is still kind of half full. So I'm going to go back upstairs. It's just too hot upstairs to film today. So I'm going to go back upstairs, put this over the inflow, and then let the second lot collect in here. But really, really love these. Actually, AJ always used these as well for her inflows. I used to use Ziploc bags, but obviously there's no airflow, and then it goes moldy a little bit quicker, so you have to act even quicker. Anyway, so today what we're going to do is we're going to extract the seeds from the berries, and then we need to clean them, and then we are going to attempt to germinate them. First things first, we don't even know if these berries have seeds yet. So technically this could still be a big failure, because it's a hybrid that I used initially, so the hybrid in itself could be sterile, so it could be that it doesn't produce seeds, and it could also be that the seeds never germinate. So while we were successful at growing berries, doesn't mean that we're going to be successful at having little seedlings. So let's have a look. So I'll just take the berry and I just squeeze them out, and this berry, sorry Bradley, this berry actually had 2 seeds in it. Here. Very nice. Well, that's very good, because if we have 2 seeds, then we have twice as many, than 1. So hopefully each berry, could be that only the big berries have 2 seeds, but let's see. Anyway, let me just squeeze them all out over here, and then I dunked them in some water. Yeah, some of the smaller berries definitely only had 1 seed in it. I've done this video before where I actually showed you the process as well. So I haven't really done it since that time, which is like 3 years ago. So I'm just going to go with the exact same technique. Because that used to work, right? So I'm just squeezing all of the berries to release the seeds. I'm going to speed that up for you because that's boring. Yeah, most of them have 2. That's epic. I've again chosen the world's biggest table for this exercise. Alright, now I'm going to wash them a little bit. So you can see them floating around down there. Can you see them? Alright, I'm washing them. Alrighty, that is wash number 1. Let's strain it. Before we do the second wash, we are trying to remove something called meso cap. At least that's how I pronounce it. Basically by taking the seed and we're just rubbing it across the paper towel to get rid of, like, it has like a little slimy skin basically, and we're trying to just get rid of that slimy skin so that the seed can germinate a little bit better, and then we're popping it back into water for round 2. So I just take the seed and I just slide it across there, and that should get rid of it. You can feel it as well. You can feel that the seed was very slimy before, now it's a little, well, also dry, but also not as slimy. Just be careful not to actually hurt the seeds here. Honestly, I don't know if you have to do this step, but I've always done this step and it's always worked for me, so I'm just going with that. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm just going to count them. 6. Forgot to count. I think I was at 18. That was a few seeds ago. Let's just keep going with 22. Oh my god, I forgot counting again. But we're definitely over 30. Alrighty, now you can see these looking clean. I'll wash them one more time. Alrighty, perfect. So they're all super clean now, I hope. Honestly, in here it looks like nothing, but that's over 30 seeds. I have prepared this Tupperware container with half moss, with a little bit of perlite mixed in. Oh my god, did I just tilt it? I'm sorry, I'm in a bit of a rush. I'm supposed to head to the gym, but I just noticed that, and I know I don't have time to get on top of this tomorrow or the day after, and by then I thought they would definitely be rotten. So anyway, that's why I'm in a little bit of a rush and clumsy, which actually ends up taking more time than if I would just focus. Anyway, moss and perlite on this side, just tree fern fiber on this side. I used to always just use moss, but I want to try something new, right? Like, it's always good to have a different learning curve, and I heard really good things about tree fern fiber for any sort of propagation. Oh, and I already just tossed some in there. I've heard lots of good things about tree fern fiber. Now, I know there's going to be like a second batch, but honestly, I'm just going to put them all into the same container, because realistically the second batch is going to be like 2-3 days behind. In the grand scheme of things, that's not a lot of time. Oopsie. It's actually hard to just put one out at a time, and I'm just going to sprinkle them randomly. The goal here is not to grow. I'm going to eventually separate out 1 or 2 for sure and just grow them a little bit larger, but I can do that at any time. I think for now the goal is just to make as many of them germinate as possible. There you go. I suppose you can see them better on the tree fern fiber than you can see on the moss, but eventually we'll see little leaves hopefully, right? So the goal is really just to create a lush, the goal is to just create a lush pot. So I will, whatever germinates, take out of this and put straight into a pot. I'm not planning on ever separating these seeds out individually. If you would want to grow individual plants because you're planning on selling them on or swapping them or growing them in different conditions, do an experiment, whatnot, now is the time, right? You could use one of these trays that actually comes with individual little trays in it, rather than just pumping them all in here, because once they're all root, it's going to be really hard to free them from each other. Now with these, I want to put them in a really bright spot, a spot that stays really warm, that is protected, and don't let it dry out. But at the same time, I also don't want mold issues, so I don't think I should fully close the lid. I will take the lid and kind of partially close it, and I'm going to put it up in my attic, because over there I've got a nice east-facing skylight. Well, the skylight is also facing up in the sky, right? So I actually get a lot of light coming through there, but it's out of my sight, because it's obviously visually not really pleasing. Like, I'm not going to decorate my apartment with plastic containers, but up in my attic it's warm because hot air rises, and I'm there every 2 or 3 days anyway, because I currently have all of my propagations up there. So I am going there more, I'm going up there on a regular basis to check on them, and I'm actually planning on making it my winter rescue section this year as well. Well, hopefully it's not going to be a rescue section, hopefully it's just my winter section. So plants that will have a hard time surviving winter outside will go into my attic. So my attic is going to become like my new plant room anyway. So I'll pop them there, and I'll probably see you in a couple of days time when I go and do my second batch of harvesting, just to show you how much I'll end up having. So let's just call this one around about 30 to 35 seeds, let's say. Probably a little bit more, but I'd rather be conservative than overestimate. Anyway, I'll just close it to carry it upstairs, because with my luck today, I'll drop the whole thing. Anyway, see you soon. Hello, here we are a couple of days later. Look at the inflow. That's what I said with I have the bag over the inflow. Look at the size of this inflow. Is it even still in frame? It is so long. That felt so good. I've been waiting for this for months. You have no idea how far this is reaching into my bedroom. Like, it was hanging on my bed for months now, and I've been trying to not kick it at night. All right, here's the plant. Look, it has definitely suffered a little bit through the infructescence, right? Obviously, the plant puts a lot of effort into creating berries, not creating leaves. But I've also had thrips, so gotta get on top of the thrips, and I'll use my contender spray. Anyway, that's my fault. It's nothing to do with the inflows. One moment, let me show you the seeds. Whew, oh, very bright here. Alright, this is the little bag I had around the inflow. I obviously looked at it. Most of the berries have popped, but I have no desire to wait any longer. Whichever berries have not popped today, look, I'll see if they pop now that I cut it off, or if they will just slowly die in there. But I am a bit worried that I already have way too many seeds. This was a lot. And I'm also just kind of like, you know, some that are still kind of hanging off there, I'm just pulling off, letting them fall into the bag. So, I mean, I could also kind of twist the inflow a little bit, you know, the structure, to release as many of the berries as possible. Just maybe let me do this inside the bag so I'm not making a mess. Just kind of twisting it, pulling a little bit to see what berries want to naturally come out. And as they come out, they're releasing the other ones, right? Because they're no longer like held in there. All right, have a look. I mean, there's still definitely some left in there. See, just trying to kind of squeeze them out. I don't know if that's really a good thing. Ideally, they would release themselves. Yeah, see how they're still in there a little bit, like here. Whoop. Take this out. Definitely has seeds in them. Oops, now I snapped this. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna just keep these, see if any of these berries still want to pop out in hindsight. Maybe even just flower girl toss them into the garden. But the reason I cut this off is because it was obviously really long and annoying me, and also I'm going on a road trip with AJ on Sunday. So by the time I come back on Wednesday, if there's any more berries that would have dropped by then, they would probably be moldy. And I don't have time to get on top of this straight away. Like, it is not my priority. And secondly, oh my god, why am I so stupid? Oh my god, they're all over my carpet. Why did I even think emptying them into my hand would do anything? I didn't realize how many seeds there were until I dropped them all on the floor. Honestly, it doesn't even look like that many in that bowl, but I reckon it's 100 seeds. Lots of seeds. I'm gonna have to clean them, slide them across the thingy, clean them again, and so on, and then pop them on. I'll pop them in the same box, honestly. I don't have enough room to grow lots of boxes of this. But I wanted to show you what's happening here. Probably have to take you closer with my phone because I don't want to tilt the box. But I think you can certainly see these seeds going green, right? You can see them actually much better on the tree fern fiber. But them turning green is the first sign of germination. And then, like, look at this one. Not green. Not good. Probably won't eventuate. Green, yay. And see the little teeny tiny thing coming out the end? That's going to be its first root. Like down there. Come on. Why don't you focus? Can you see this teeny tiny green thing coming out? Surely this one we can see. If my bloody camera would ever focus on it. Ah, there we go. See this little bit sticking out there? Yes. That was way too hard. Okay, I'll do the same. I cleaned them. I'll flower girl toss them in here. And, well, that's great signs, right? We see some signs of germination, so clearly they're not molding straight away. And we'll see each other once there's some updates to share. Hopefully some teeny tiny first leaves. That would be cute, no? Right. I'll see you soon. I can hardly sit. You don't care? You really don't care, huh? You go shit in your eyes. You can clean yourself. You do nothing all day. Oh, sorry, forgot about you there. Hello. Alrighty, so it's been about 2.5 months since we've cleaned the seeds and started the germination process. And let me put a few shots of the seedlings up on screen over the last 2.5 months. I didn't really feel the need to do like a verbal update like I'm doing right now. I just took some small little videos to show you kind of the progression. And here we are. Let's have a quick look at this first. It's looking good. definitely looking much better on the moss side than it does on the tree fern fiber side. Now, whether or not I just sprinkled more seeds on the moss side and less on the tree fern fiber side, that could be an explanation. But I also found that the moss stays more consistently moist. I found with the tree fern fiber, some bits dry out, some bits stay moister. I don't know. Anyway, I actually prefer the moss, but both of them certainly worked. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like the moss is, from a just proof is in the pudding method kind of style, the moss seems to be the obvious winner. Now we can have a look down below as well. I can see a few teeny tiny roots pushing against the, I don't think you could possibly see this, but not that much rooting just yet. There's a few variegated plants in there, or at least it looks like they might have variegation, and that's not necessarily unusual. When you grow via seed, mutation is possible. The more seeds, the more likely one of them shows mutation. Doesn't mean that the variegated ones will really have a chance of surviving, but it's a nice little surprise, right? Like, I mean, I didn't expect it, I didn't grow it for that purpose, but if I get some, why not? Now what I want to do is I want to separate them out, at least one or two of them, and try them in the greenhouse. I also want to separate out just a green one. They're upstairs in my attic. They definitely get like decent light, but I don't think I'm optimizing their growth based on the conditions that I provide them, which is okay, right? I'm not in a rush. I got these teeny tiny pots from when I got my Billy Coyston sent to me, so I thought they would be perfect. So I want to separate a few out just so I can try and optimize their growth a little bit more, so I can see what they actually look like, right? While working on a lusher pot of lots of them, right? So the earlier I separate them out, the better. Now I understand that you won't be able to see all too much with that camera angle, but just trust me. What I'm going to do is I'm just trying to pick out a few little ones here, and I very gently push them out of the tree fern fiber or the moss. That's probably the advantage of tree fern fiber. This came out super easily, and you should totally see that this is kind of variegated, you know what I mean? Maybe not. I think that would be so cool. Imagine this stays variegated. Alright, put a little bit of moss in here. Over here I need to be very gentle. I just gently put this in there. This is the root with all of the tree fern fiber on it. I close the moss around it very gently, and I put it in here. Again, very gently. Number one. Let's try another one. That's what I mean. See, it doesn't come out that nicely with moss because the moss holds everything together, but there's this one with the variegation, and then I've just separated out some of the green ones. Might as well. I don't need to free the roots from the moss. I just want to separate them out. So I've got a green one here, another green one here, and then this one is two actually. There's a variegated one and a green one. See, I mean, already after just a few months you can see how the variegated is much smaller than the green one. Oh, but they're so cute! And we repeat the same process. Actually, I'm going to put the little green ones back in there because I've discovered a few larger green ones that I rather separate out. Because if I mean, might as well separate out the ones that are already the largest if that's the goal, to mature them rather quick. Alrighty, here we are. These are the 5 pots that are separated. These 3 are variegated. I've got 1 shoot in here, 2 in here, and 3 in here, but out of those 3 I think only 1 really shows a bit of variegation for now. I don't even know if it's variegation still. It could just be virus. And then 2 of them over here are green, and they're already significantly larger. So they're all going to go into my IKEA cabinet now because they're going to have better conditions there. They're going to have more space to grow and not compete with all the other ones, but specifically they have more light, warmth, and consistent airflow. So I'm excited for that. I'm really, really excited for this experiment. I think I pollinated it in November, so I think we're moving really fast with this actually. It's been, well, it's only May now, so it's been half a year and we already have seedlings. I think that's pretty good. So let's see how long it takes until we see what these plants actually end up looking like. Alrighty, and we are back. Thank you so much, Jan, from the past. Now, whoop, we got yet another inflow over here. I have no desire to collect pollen, germinate it, whatsoever. Technically, yes, it has really nice features and I have a few other inflows that I could kind of pollinate with that. But I think for now I have enough puppy DNA in my collection, right? So I think that's it. Plus, every time the plant develops the inflow, especially if it then goes through to the infructescence, so when it starts carrying berries, that obviously takes a lot of energy from the plant, and I would rather have this plant focus its energy on leaf growth. It hasn't grown all too well for me over the last few months, but that is also because we went through winter. You should be able to see a little bit of winter damage, some yellowing on this leaf over here, but that's okay. As we're approaching spring, I have seen way more active growth on my anthuriums. And that's kind of a recurring thing every year. Every year when we come out of winter, I first notice my anthuriums growing a few new inflows. So those were the first new inflows since the beginning of this video. And then shortly thereafter, I start seeing new leaves. So most of my anthuriums are currently either growing an inflow or an inflow in a leaf. So I know spring is getting closer. But enough about the mother plant. We didn't really come here for the mother plant, right? The mother plant was just a means to an end. I mean, I appreciate it. She's looking pretty, but we want to know about the seedlings, right? And let's start off with the bad news. And I feel like recently all the videos I made, like there's just bad news galore. I just feel like every video is like a fail or something went wrong and so on. And then I just must remember that that's just winter, you know, and not to take it too personally. In summer you get all of these videos from me where, you know, look, I chopped this plant and 3 months later it's huge. Well, you know, it is basically taking advantage of the good conditions. Whereas in winter, look, I chopped this plant and it died. Anyway, but basically I'm not purposely having bad news stories. That is actually just how sad life is these days. It's not that sad, it's just plants. And you also get to keep in mind, the stakes are super low. All of this cost me nothing, just time and I suppose a bit of resources for the pot or something like that. But I didn't buy anything. I didn't buy pollen or I didn't buy seeds or something like that. I just created them myself. All it did is it took a little bit of time, but I mean, that's the hobby, right? Like, I mean, I don't have plants so I have them. I have plants so that I can grow them and experiment with them and so on. Anyway, I'm teasing you. You want to see the seedlings. You probably want to see the variegated seed. Yeah, nah. Sauce, guys. I forgot about them. I fully forgot about them and I forgot how much water requirement these tiny pots actually have. Like, I should really spray them with water every 2 to 3 days. I think there was like a good 2 weeks where I forgot about them. There was also the time when I was in Thailand, fair enough, but I also forgot to ask my housemate to spray them for me. I just forgot they exist. And even when I came back from Thailand, I forgot to spray them for another 2 or 3 days. That's one of them. Basically, 4 out of 5 are completely gone. They're just shriveled up, dead. You would think, oh, hang on, only 4 out of 5? The other one must be thriving. No, the other one has aphids. Actually, it actively has aphids right now. Have a look at this on the back of the leaf. Yay! Probably not showing at all because the camera hates me. I will have to take this out and spray this with some contender spray. Happy days. But basically, yes, it exists, but it has been eaten by aphids, so it's also suffering, and I'm not too sure if it's gonna recover or not. But that is life. Those will go in the bin. I'm so excited I can finally do this update and bin them. I was too lazy. I was procrastinating filming this update because I don't have anything good to share with you. So they've been dead in the IKEA cabinet for a month. I'm just growing algae at this stage. But I wanted to follow through and show you, not just tell you. So finally I can bin those, and this one will get a contender spray application. It's not all doom and gloom, of course, because remember, I have a full box full of seedlings up in my rescue section, and my rescue section totally did not have aphids and thrips as well. So they did. At least I didn't let them dry out though, so we do actually have a little bit of success. I mean, if you look in the grand scheme of things, there's lots and lots of little seedlings in here. Do they look significantly better than 3 months ago? No. Do they maybe look a little bit worse than 3 months ago? Probably. Have I, again, mainly grown algae? Yes. Overall, we can see a lot of yellowing. Sorry, I also sprayed this with water today, so it's quite moist. Let it dry out a little bit as well, maybe. You can definitely see a lot of yellowing. Honestly, at this stage, I can't even be asked to really get rid of the yellowing leaves because I feel like I would just cause more damage. What you can also see is that you can't see any more of the variegated ones. I obviously picked out the variegated ones beforehand because I wanted to grow them in isolation, but I think I left a couple in there and I can't really see them. So I suppose they're the first to die, and the green ones have the most desire to live, so they are more tolerant when it comes to things like pests. This one actually is probably one of my favorites. Look at this. This one actually has a nice leaf shape and it's super, super heart shaped. This one over here also super, super heart shaped. Look at this leaf there. This one over here is more tear-shaped, right? So yeah, overall, nothing terrible, but also nothing amazing. Yeah, I mean, these are still too small to really see what the end result is going to look like over here. But it could easily be that at least I get a little bit of variety in the shape, right? Maybe some are more heart-shaped, maybe some are a little bit more elongated and so on. So I suppose that is one of the interesting things about growing from seed, especially where we're dealing with hybrids, because of the parent plant being a hybrid in itself with these seeds. Now, one of the two parentages can be a little bit more dominant and then result in the leaf shape, color and so on varying. So that is quite interesting, as opposed to just taking stem cuttings where the only variance in appearance would be based on conditions, right? So yeah, if you give it a lot of light, you can also maybe alter the leaf shape, but it wouldn't be altered like on a DNA level, it would just be conditional, right? And as soon as you change those conditions, the leaf shape will also change again and so on. I suppose that's one of the extra appeals of making hybrids, but I've also been very, very vocal on, just because you created a hybrid does not mean that it's super unique and rare and you need to sell it as at a premium and give it a ridiculous name. If you followed me for a while, you heard about my Anthurium Crazy Rubbish, which is kind of like the exact same process with a crystallinum, and I called it Crazy Rubbish as a bit of a piss take to all of the crazy Anthurium names that are popping up over here because somebody has followed that exact journey at home. It's not that hard. It does not require each seedling to come with a $400 price tag. The main reason why I like to do this, as I mentioned in the intro, is volume. And I now can create a lush pot with 10, 20, 30, 40 seedlings in there, and it still hasn't really cost me anything apart from the pot and the media that I want to fill the pot with. I didn't have to buy 10 plants at $100 each. So when things like the dried out seedlings happen, I don't need to beat myself up over it because I didn't essentially lose anything. I only lost an opportunity to maybe have a nice variegated plant. Let's keep talking about the variegated plants real quick. I still don't know if they're actually truly variegated. It could have just been that like one or two of these leaves, show a bit of variegation, but the plant would have grown out of it anyway. It could have been that the plant was never destined to survive because of the variegation, because it was already sick and so on. But I think in this instance, I definitely dropped the ball and I let it dry out too much. I just haven't really had seedlings in a long time, right? Like, do grow small plants sometimes, but I haven't had a tiny plant like that in so long. And obviously with a tiny plant, like a tiny baby like that, vulnerability is an issue, and you need to stay on top of things a little bit more. So despite having had a few challenges, specifically in the second part of this process, I think it was a great success. I mean, overall, it only took 11 months from collecting the pollen all the way to actually having a decent amount of tiny seedlings available. And if I would have isolated them from the beginning, germinated them separately and then grew them in separate little pots, giving them better conditions, more space, and stayed on top of pest treatment a little bit more, they could also be significantly larger by now already. So I think it was quite a smooth process, and I think it was quite a fast process as well. Doesn't always have to be like that. For example, I have a luxuriance inflorescence that is also currently, I think the pollination worked, but it's already been about 6 months and I can hardly see any berries, right? So I think this one in particular was actually quite fast, and I think I got lucky with that. And to be honest, everything worked out. First pollination attempt worked out, first germination attempt worked out. Everything was kind of really smooth sailing. And from my experience with anthuriums, it is more likely for it to be a smooth journey than a really tricky one. Obviously depends on what sort of plants you start this whole journey with in the first place. But I think it is definitely something achievable. And if you have an anthurium, I hope this video might encourage you to grow out the next inflorescence and start your own pollination journey and see what you can come up with. They definitely make great presents for people as well. You can separate out one of those plants, grow it up, and then give it to somebody. And as much as it's not rare and unique or whatever, it is somewhat of a unique present because it's something that you can't actually buy. In the comments down below, I would love for you to get really creative. And it doesn't need to make like biological sense, right? But if you could cross 2 plants of any genus with each other, what kind of hybrid would you create? And what would you hope for with this? I haven't really made up my mind, because there's so many options, but I would love to read your suggestions down below, and maybe we can take these suggestions and we can make a whole video out of that. Maybe we can even ask AI to help us to generate some of these funky hybrids. They're obviously just fiction. We're not talking about real hybrids here. I'm just being really ambitious. Imagine you could take like a ficus and you take a verrucosum and you have a tree, but each leaf of the tree is like a verrucosum. That would be cool, right? Get creative in the comment section down below. Let me know your best fantasy hybrid. Obviously, before you do that, make sure you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And hopefully, I'll see you in my next video. Bye!